Welcome back to Nerd News Today. I'm Matthew, and in this episode, we have one of my personally most anticipated figures that I've gotten in quite some time. And that's because today, we're taking a look at Diamond Select's Beta Ray Bill action figure from their Marvel Select line. He's basically Thor with a weird horse's head. His backstory, if you actually look into it, is really pretty nuts. And he's just a really cool character. I mean, most recently, if you guys want to check out some stories with Beta Ray Bill, I recommend you check out the Daniel Warren Johnson comic that came out in 2022. It's a 5-part miniseries that really tells you all you need to know about Beta Ray Bill. It's got a really great 5-issue story arc here, some really cool characters joining him for that adventure, and also the artwork is amazing because DWJ is one of the best comic book artists out there right now. And I say that because I know a lot of you folks on this channel are here because you love pro wrestling and pro wrestling toys, and Daniel Warren Johnson also last year released a comic called Do a Powerbomb. Again, another amazing thing all about pro wrestling. I mean, this guy loves wrestling. Beta Ray Bill even does Okada's finishing move in the comic, so really, check it out for real. But I'm not going to keep gushing about the comics because we're here to, of course, gush about the action figures. And yeah, this Beta Ray Bill here is already looking pretty gorgeous. Let's just talk about this packaging real quick so then I can hurry up and get him out of there. And this box is like all of the Marvel Select figures from Diamond. They have this enormously massive open window so you can see everything that's in this toy, and there's not necessarily a lot of stuff in there besides the figure, but what is in there is pretty sweet. If we turn to the side, you'll get a nice little illustration of our Beta Ray Bill, and likewise on the back you're getting the same one, just now full body. The one downside though about the back of this packaging is that there's absolutely nothing else there. It's just this one illustration, and that's it. Sometimes Marvel Select figures give you a nice little bio, sometimes they don't. Usually they give you some information about who sculpted the toy. This time, nothing there at all, and I do not like that. I really want to keep making sure that we always know who sculpted these things. You know, NECA does that. Diamond has been doing that also, and they do that with all their sculptures and their statues. But with the action figures too, they've been doing it for quite some time, and it is missing here. So I hope that's not something that they're going to be keeping up forever, because I really want to know who actually made this, and I want to give them a lot of credit because, oh man, this is a pretty amazing interpretation of this character. So that's enough about the packaging. Let's go ahead and get our Beta Ray Bill out of the box and take a closer look at him from all angles. All right, and here is our Beta Ray Bill now. He's all ready to go. Let's give him a quick rotation as we give my initial thoughts on this figure. And, you know, again, I've said it time and time again with Diamond Select, and I'm going to probably say it multiple times this video too. Whenever they do characters that are really big, that is when Diamond Select is at their best. And Beta Ray Bill here, you know, it's an interesting one because he kind of could have gone either way. I didn't expect him to quite be as enormous as this figure turned out to be. I figured, yeah, he'd be big and muscular, but I didn't think he'd be like this thick of a boy, because he is a thick boy to season there. So, you know, I was pleasantly surprised by that. I was a little bit worried, but seeing him out of the box, well, even seeing him in the box, but especially seeing him out of the box, all those fears have gone, they have disappeared, and we're left with a really great and pretty unique version of Beta Ray Bill. So, you know, really in terms of toy history, there hasn't been a lot of Beta Ray Bill action figures. I can think of the Silver Surfer animated series line that had a figure of him, and he's had like 2 Marvel Legends, one being like the more recent time, which was not that interesting of a figure, honestly. And then there was one of these smaller 3 3/4 inch figures, and there might have been a Toy Biz Beta Ray Bill as well, but I don't remember. And that's basically it. So up until then, that's all you've had. Today you have this very, very different looking version of Beta Ray Bill here, but it really hits all the right notes. So let's first talk about the likeness on our Beta Ray Bill here, and let's just think, does this actually look like Beta Ray Bill? And I'd say, oh yeah, it does. Yeah, this is totally Beta Ray Bill here. You know, the one thing that's kind of maybe a little bit different from what we're used to seeing with a lot of other Beta Ray Bills is this big flowing mane up top here. And I was actually surprised to see that too, because typically, you know, we haven't seen him with this accessory as much, or depends, I guess, when you've read comics with him. But yeah, in the case of this figure, he has this giant mohawk up here as part of his helmet. And I gotta tell you guys, I actually was worried at first. When I first saw it in box, I was like, oh no, it's like, you can see it's not like a flat mohawk, it's kind of like flowing, but no, that is how it's supposed to be. It's meant to be flowing like that, because it's meant to be like it's blowing in the wind or in action. So it's not just a straight up mohawk, it has some actual energy to it, which is very cool, actually. I like that a lot. But as far as like the face goes and everything like that, yeah, this is Beta Ray Bill. And I like Beta Ray Bill too, because his face is just like so unique to the comics. Like no one else really has his look. He is a Corbinite, so it's a pretty weird alien species. They're typically rather frail looking, but once he got himself Stormbreaker, he became that super augmented guy. And that's what he is. He's basically an augmented Corbinite. who then also got a hammer, so yay for him. But yeah, wonderful likeness. You can see there is a little bit of paint splotch right there, unfortunately, right above his eyebrow, but I think that's actually the only little mishap that's on him, or the only mishap that's really worth mentioning, because otherwise, this looks like it's a really solid, clean paint job. But yeah, as far as the likeness in the face goes, you know, they have weird faces. Let's be real here. Beta Ray Bill has a pretty weird face, but I also think that's why people like him so much, because he is so different looking than everything else in the entire Marvel Universe. So of course people are going to flock to that because it's just so different looking. I mean, it's basically like a weird horse-looking alien, but it's still the way they did it. Ultimately, how his face is shaped, it's so unique to just him, and they definitely got that likeness down packed here. So, hats off to Diamond on doing that. Now let's take a close look at the outfit as a whole, and again, I'm really happy with this. You know, it's really cool because he's a pretty thick guy, like I said, and there's still a pretty fair amount of detail in this, especially in this costume here. And I really like a lot of the classic elements they also threw into this piece. You have all the big round sections, which are really kind of like old throwback to classic Thor. But, you know, as far as this guy goes, I kind of like his almost Centurion look also, which goes again with that helmet and the cape and the big, giant shoulder pauldrons there. This is really cool. I really like this outfit a lot. And likewise too with the lower half of his body as well. He's got some really cool looking boots there. Those are some nice Thor style boots. Really dig these. Dig the metallic look of them too. I mean, he's got this great gold finish on a lot of his figure, and that really helps him pop a lot. The gold next to the blue, it looks really good. You know, it kind of reminds you a lot of what they did with Thor Love and Thunder, and how they kind of mix the blue with all the golds and a little bit of the blacks. So it's very much in almost that vein, and I don't think it's necessarily intended to be done that way. That's just kind of Thor's color scheme anyway. So it just happened to work out really nicely for him. Now, one of the really cool parts about this too, we have to, I think, talk about really early on, is the cape. I'm always a sucker for a good cape, and this, wow, this is a great cape, you guys. Now, typically when I talk about capes, it's usually with the statues. You know, a lot of the action figures I've looked at don't normally have them. It's few and far between. I think most recent times from Diamond, I had like a Scarlet Witch from WandaVision, and that had a really nice flowy cape, but otherwise, not really a ton of capes out there for these guys, or at least not in a long while. So this is a great example of the work that Diamond does. Just wonderful two-tone weathering here, so you can actually see, I mean, it might even be three, but you can easily see that it's at least two tones here, because you've got the nice dark shadows in here as well. It really recede really nice here, in fact, especially, and that really just helps augment the natural shadows of the flow of the cape. And, you know, likewise, the parts that are closest to the eye, they are brighter. So, you know, it's really the same too with his mane on top of his helmet, but especially the cape, it just looks really dynamic. It adds a lot to the figure. And what else I like about it too is a lot of the textured elements to this. He's fairly overall a pretty smooth character, but you do have some texture in like the legs, a little bit in the gloves, but otherwise it is pretty smooth. But what is there really shines and pops real nice. Because again, we're talking about some pretty dark colors here, but what they did with it, what they did with the sculpting, the way the light is hitting it, it still works. So he's not flattening himself out. Now let's talk about accessories here, and because this character is so big, it doesn't have a lot. Because I mean, let's be real here, this guy, he is the main event. If you're a My Little Pony fan, you could say he's the main event. Some of you will get that, most of you won't. I apologize to everybody. Yeah, as far as accessories go, he gets Stormbreaker, not once, but twice. So we have our normal Stormbreaker right here, and this is just a great rendition of that hammer that he has. Just a nice gold look here. There we go. It's got, I flip it upside down because it's easier, because it has a little handle to hold on to. So that's Stormbreaker, really pretty, nice gold finish on that. At least for now, at this moment, I can't get it in there. I'm going to try it again a little bit later on in the review here, but that's kind of a bit of a problem, but I think it will eventually go in there. It just needs to be worked a little bit more. But I'm a little bit more optimistic about this accessory here, and this is really cool. This is a Stormbreaker in motion accessory. So just like you'd see him swing it in the comic, you'd have him now swing it in action figure form. And this is also why he doesn't come with a lot of accessories, because, well, frankly, that's also a pretty enormous accessory to come with. So let's see if we can get this into his hand. This should go in. I feel like this has to go in a lot easier. And again, it's also a very thick handle, but yep, that one went in. So there we go. That looks pretty cool. That looks really nice. Wow, it actually is like he's legitimately swinging it. That's cool. And that piece here is meant to kind of be his handle, even though it's really thick. Obviously, they couldn't make it as thin plastic as the handle is over here with like the strap parts I'm talking about. Like, that's meant to be the strap. Now, obviously, it cannot be that thin or else that would break right apart. But, you know, that works fine. It's all part of the illusion. And that looks great. Yeah, that looks really good. I'm pretty happy about that part right there. So yeah, that at least works, and that's good to know. So that looks great, that looks really, really good, and that's good to know that that part does in fact fit. So yeah, this is, I think, ultimately really how you should pose him anyway. I mean, it's cool to have Stormbreaker just stationary, but I think for Beta Ray Bill, he needs to be in action. So that's great. I really like that. But let's start talking about articulation a little bit here, because I think that's where we might run into a few problems. And unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be the most articulated figure. So we'll start here at the head, which you guys can see he has a ball-jointed head with little limited range of motion because he's got cape and shoulder pads in the way. Likewise, he also has a joint here in the chest, but you can't do much because there's also this piece of plastic that's part of his torso that just hits right into the belt. It's just very, very stiff. It's not going to move much. Luckily, we already saw that the shoulders move really nicely, and he also has, looks like an articulation at the top of the biceps, so you can move those around a little bit. The elbows are nice, but I had this problem with another figure too recently from Diamond, especially the bigger guys. They're getting really extra stiff somehow. And these are kind of like different elbow joints as well. They're kind of like hidden a little bit. So they're a little bit tougher to work with. And again, I don't think it's anything that can't be solved by a hairdryer or some hot water. Just they're very stiff. The wrists do move. The waist does not move. And even if it did, probably wouldn't be able to do much because this giant belt is in the way. And as far as legs go, he's got ball jointed legs that actually can move okay. But again, the belt is so enormous, you're not going to be able to really get too much with them. You also have double jointed knees. It looks like the thigh, can't tell if it moves or not. I don't think it does, but it's hard to tell the way it's moving. But yeah, double jointed knee, which is, actually, no, sorry, that is a single jointed knee, actually, a single jointed knee on this Beta Ray Bill. And we do have some ankle rotation there. So articulation, not the best, unfortunately, not the worst. But it's really nothing to brag about with him just because it's a little clunky, I guess. And he's got a lot of stuff in his way that makes it hard to move. But not that hard to fall down. All right, let's do a few figure comparisons here. And I'm going to bring in a G.I. Joe Classified figure just because I don't have any Marvel Legends at the moment. But I do have a G.I. Joe Classified, and they're generally about the same size as Marvel Legends. You can see how big Beta Ray Bill is compared to a G.I. Joe Classified figure. Likewise, I'm going to bring in a Mattel WWE figure. Here's an Xavier Woods basic. So, you know, he is a lot bigger. And all the Diamond toys in general are bigger. So, you know, it is what it is. That's how he's going to look next to those guys. But he is meant to be a pretty large character anyway. It is Beta Ray Bill after all. So that's with those guys. But I also have something that might be a little bit closer. That's a NECA figure. This is a good old NECA Terminator figure. And NECA figures are slightly bigger than everything else. So they're kind of close to that 7-inch scale, and they're in scale too with the McFarlane toys, also slightly bigger than Marvel Legends. And that's how he's going to look next to him. So really, at the end of the day, no matter who you have, they're going to just look enormous because Beta Ray Bill is just huge. So at the end of the day, Beta Ray Bill is going to look huge next to anybody because he is just a very enormous character. Okay, you guys, I took a quick break just to see if I could actually get the hammer in his hand. And in doing that, I was able to actually bend the elbow, and so you can see that moves fine now. And really with the hammer, all I had to do was just force the hand a lot more than I wanted to. I was a little uncomfortable doing that, especially on camera, because it's hard to see with the camera in front of my face. I was a little bit afraid to bend it too much, but you kind of have to. You need to be very firm with these fingers. They're not like rock hard either. They are malleable to enough of an extent to get it around his hammer, so it is possible, and that's how it looks with it there. So overall, I am very, very impressed with this Beta Ray Bill figure. I was excited for it when I first saw it announced, when I first heard it was announced. I'm very excited now to have it in my hands. This is awesome. You know, I love Beta Ray Bill as an action figure. He hasn't had a lot of representation in articulated form, but here he is, and he's looking so good. Yeah, I'm really, really happy with this one. I think you guys are going to like him too. You know, even if you don't know much about the character, it's just such an interesting looking design because really it combines the awesomeness of Thor's look, which is always great in action figure form, and it combines it into a weird alien horse guy that's just really interesting to look at. And not only that, taken to factor here, this really cool accessory he has. You know, Stormbreaker is cool, but the fact that he has the spinning part as well, that's just such a really great touch. So I'm really happy with this figure. Really, if anything, the only detraction is I do recommend heating up all the joints before you do much with them. Otherwise, you could be in for a real world of hurt. And you really want to avoid that with these toys because you're paying a lot of money for them. Why have them break on you? So if you want to pick up this Beta Ray Bill for yourself, I'm going to have links in the description below to pick them up from Amazon.com. If you use any of those links, it helps this YouTube channel at no extra cost to you, no matter what you purchase. So thank you in advance for doing that. And anybody out there who's watching this video who also currently owns this Beta Ray Bill, let me know what you think about him. There's a lot of cool stuff with this character. I'd love to hear what you think and how he fits into your collection. So until next time, I'm Matthew. This has been Nerd News Today. That's our Diamond Select Marvel Select action figure of Beta Ray Bill. We'll see you guys next time at more action figure reviews and everything else we do here. And I don't think Beta Ray Bill has any really neat catchphrases, so I'll just say up, up, and Beta Ray Bill out? I don't know, I have nothing. Goodbye! Ooh.